What used to be normal in the past, but up now. Giving kids cocaine for a cold. Babies weren't allowed to have anesthesia because people though they couldn't feel pain. Having kids with your family to keep your bloodline pure. Using radioactive isotopes in paints for glow-in-the-dark things, also asbestos. Visiting friends and family at their house unexpectedly, 1990s. Oh hey, good to see you. Bill, come on in. Today. Why the fluff did Bill just stop by without any notice? At least text me beforehand. Or smoking wherever you liked. As a child I remember my mom and dad smoking on the plane when we went on holidays. That seems crazy to me now. Lead paint. Watching executions for fun. Renting VHS videos and getting charged $3 every day that you're late from Blockbuster Video. The charge would show up 5 years later when you apply for a new card if you moved lol. Throwing people into volcanoes while chanting. Posing for pictures. http www.bbc.com/news/uk-england-363895881 with your recently deceased relatives. Drinking and driving. A lot of disease treatment and general health care was brutal. Mercury, lead, cocaine, and methamphetamine all used to be common medications. Removing whole limbs just because we didn't have the means to deal with infections. Dumping garbage in the streets. Check ancient Rome and disease-ridden London. Airline passengers used to dress up for routine flights because travel by air was considered fashionable. Abusing the mentally ill. Answering the phone when you don't know who is calling. Stoning people to death. When I was born I came home from the hospital on my mom's lap in the front seat of a Camaro with no seatbelts and my dad chain smoking while driving. Being a fan of Bill Cosby. Marrying a young girl when you're king or head of a church. Mummy unwrapping during the Victorian era. I know this isn't exactly the worst thing, but Jell-O mold salads. Lime Jell-O. Present in almost all of them. Mixed with mayonnaise and literally anything. They put olives in fluffing mayo Jell-O. What in the actual fluff was the 50s? Fucking 13 years old as a 40 years old. Owning people. Using asbestos. Using Internet Explorer as your default browser. Freak shows https://yen.mrwikipedia.org/wiki/freak_show . People in the olden days be like, hey, let's just fry this man inside a metal bowl in front of children LMAO. Not buckling in your kids in the car. My sister and I spent 12-hour road trips playing and sleeping on the floor of our minivan with the chairs taken out. Now if you don't have your kid properly buckled into their space rocket seat, it's neglectful. Murdering criminals in gladiatorial combat. Ah, those were the days. Lindsay Lohan? Marrying and fluffing your 15-year-old cousin. Kids dying from fluffing mumps and polio because you couldn't vaccinate your children. Letting young kids stay outside playing for hours until the street lights come on without knowing where they are. It's not really effed up, but it's def not normal now. Bloodletting. Beating, abusing your children. Burning women on the stake for thinking that they were witches. Edit, meant stake not rug. AOL. Just showing up at someone's house. Early 90s. Happened all the time. Now, don't do it. I think I approve of this culture shift. By the way, marital rape. It used to be that the woman's meow must be available whenever the husband pleases. Reusing the names of newborns who died young. My grandmother was one of 22 children. Birth control. Kids. But only 16 survived to be adults. All 6 children who died young were middle children. And all of their names were reused on subsequent children. In fact, in theory I have 3 great-uncle Jims because the first 2 passed away. The great-uncle Jim who lived was awesome, though. And my great-great-grandmother joked that she was glad he was the Jim who stuck around. Drill in some skulls without anesthesia. My mom often told my sister and I how, when she was a young 13 to 15, She would go to and from school using public buses, and it wasn't unusual for her and other girls her age to be harassed by older men. Like they would take their slongs out and try to touch them with it, or try to touch their intimate parts and garbage like that. Luckily, this isn't usual nowadays. It still happens, but so little that it's very rare to hear about it. What's common now, it's catcalling. But luckily, as many times I've been catcalled, only once did a man try to actually touch me without my consent. Unlike my mother's time. Edit. A word. Buggery in boarding schools. C.S. Lewis, the famous Christian author, wrote about it at his private boarding school. There was an organized system of tarts, younger boys, who would perform sexual favors for older boys in return for protection against systematic bullying. He regards it as normal and not particularly shameful. It was just part of the British elite's education during the imperial age. Cannibalism, slavery, old people marrying 12-year-old girls, hanging people accused of being witches, or the guillotine. That garbage is horrifying. Or heroin given as a cough syrup for children. Teachers allowed to beat their students. I remember my mom telling me she got spanked and beaten with sticks from her teachers. It was a common thing, I guess, in the 50s and 60s. Being a pedophile whilst working in the BBC. Picking up people from the street, highway. Public executions. People confusing things considered fluffed up now with things that don't exist anymore. Declawing cats. Don't fucking declaw your cats. Cuss in children's movies. This ruined the experience. 2018 January memes. Sati practice in India. Widows were burnt in the same funeral pyre as their dead husbands. Teething remedies. In the past, Western humanity went through a long period of time where we thought that teething could kill babies. Probably because teething babies can get low fevers during the pain of teething. And fevers could be deadly back then. We would give tiny babies copious amounts of drugs. Morphine, cocaine, laudanum. For example, we would give them alcohol until they passed out, not just rubbing it on their gums, which is also bad but not as bad as spoonfuls of alcohol to make them sleep. We even cut their gums to allow the teeth to erupt. Parents did this before most people had a concept of germ theory. I've been doing a lot of genealogy research recently, and I have to comb through death records a lot. The number of babies who have the cause of death listed as teething is mind-blowing. Especially since it was probably all the intervention the parents did to stop the chills pain that actually killed them this year. Swimming naked at the YMCA. When I took swimming lessons as a kid, everyone skinny dipped us kids. The teenagers helping us, and the instructor. Nothing bad ever happened, and I became a fairly strong swimmer. Now, some places make guys register as happy fun time offenders if they so much as get caught peeing in the woods. Foot melding. Blackface. In the 90s, my music teacher showed us Fred Astaire and other prominent actors performing in blackface in class. Try that shiz now. Calling someone daddy. My uncle told me that when he was a kid in the 60s, there were these chocolate candies in the shape of a baby all the kids casually called buddy babies. RAM and graphic card prices. Using the word retard ed to describe a person or their actions. Pedophilia was totally cool even a few hundred years ago. Creepy. Waiting 5 minutes for a page to load on the internet. Lead being used in everything here in the United States. Military bases and older buildings still have a lot of lead paint. Growing up, my parents constantly told me not to eat or lick the paint when we lived in government quarters. I probably did just out of spite. Indecently censoring your cusses. Might as well not censor it at all. What in the hell is that censorship in the title supposed to accomplish? Kill your own wife to marry someone younger. Drinking and driving. Not saying it wasn't fluffed up then, but that garbage used to be rarely punished or even considered to be a bad thing in the past. My uncle, a recovering alcoholic, told us a story from the 70s about how he got pulled over after getting absolutely obliterated at a bar. The cops told him to slow down on his drive home. The corset R. Brain Cells complains that the female aliens won't have happy fun time with theme this year.